Pecans has been the horse I've been riding for all my life. I tend 4,100 acres. My father started this farm, and so I had the unique opportunity of growing up with it.
The pecan crop in Georgia is about a $400 million a year crop for the state. If you add all the infrastructure and the support industries and all that behind it, you're looking at about a $1.9 billion value to the state in the pecan industry. In addition to the economic value of it, there's also a cultural value there because pecans have been grown here in Georgia for a little over 100 years. We're the largest producing state. So we've had a series of hurricanes over the last several years that have caused a pretty big blow to the Georgia pecan industry. Hurricane Michael probably being the biggest one. It was about a $560 million storm.
Pretty much every acre along the coast will get impacted by a hurricane about once every 13 years. And so those are, the major storms that you hear about: Hurricane Michael, Helene, Idalia. But then on top of that, tropical storms, which don't quite reach hurricane speeds, still cause pretty significant damage, and those happen about every 5 years.
Where we live and the proximity that we are to the Gulf and the Atlantic, this is part of life for us.
Buck's location just happens to be in a bad spot for hurricanes. So in most of the hurricanes that we've experienced, Buck is usually my first call to kind of find out, what the damage was, what things are looking like. Knowing somebody with the experience with these storms that he has and hearing them say, this is the worst I've ever experienced, I knew when I heard that it was bad.
I live in the middle of an orchard. So the worst of it happened for us, I think, somewhere between 1 a.m., 5 a.m. You stay there and you experience it, waiting on a door to blow in, windows to blow out, and it was rough. There's nothing to prepare you for. When you go out and you observe it, it's just, the reality of it is tough.
So whenever we have a hurricane hit the pecan industry, you're looking at basically 3 different types of loss there. You've got loss to that year's crop, you've got loss to the tree, so there's a value of that tree there, and then you have the future income loss. When you first go out into an orchard after a storm, it's overwhelming when there's been a lot of damage because you really can't see anything because there's just trees laying everywhere. So it's hard to get a perspective from the ground of really how bad it is. And it's so much, especially for somebody whose livelihood's tied up in that, it's such a shocking thing for them to see that you're often just paralyzed at first. And then kind of the instinct of farmers tends to take over and they just get to work and start the cleanup process.
In 3 months' time, we went from hurricane morning to cleaned it all up. Took me 3 months, which I feel like, I can't thank my crew enough. That's a monumental task. Over 23,000 trees, anywhere from 3-year-old to 50-year-olds, and got knocked out in that storm.
A major hurricane is going to present serious challenges to growers of any size. It's extremely expensive to clean these orchards up after a storm. A lot of times larger growers can absorb that a little better than the smaller growers because they have a lot of the large equipment, they have a lot of labor. Smaller growers, it may just be one guy and a couple of workers and they don't have the large equipment. It can be a little bit more of a challenge for a small grower, but it's certainly challenging for both.
We've used a variety of different methods to try to understand hurricane risk to orchards. We measured about 1,000 trees immediately after Hurricane Idalia to learn about some of the risk factors, but we're also expanding to using drones and satellite imagery to study damage, which lets us extend some of these findings to the entire state. From our surveys of pecan orchards, we found 3 things that growers can think about during site selection to reduce hurricane exposure. First, it really helps to pay attention to soil texture. Orchards that are on sandy soils will stand up to wind a lot better because of their deeper root development. Second, it's important to pay attention to the surrounding landscape. Orchards that are next to fields, ponds, or other open areas can be a lot more exposed, and just a little bit of cover from surrounding forest or vegetation can provide some protection. And then third, establishing orchards on flatter terrain can provide some protection. Orchards that are perched on hills can be more exposed, and also those that are nestled in valleys can experience more severe winds. Once a site is established, one of the most important things a grower can do is to do hedge pruning, which reduces canopy size and the drag that wind can create. Second, we know that trees that are about 14 inches in diameter are some of the most vulnerable, so maintaining a lot of different sizes in your orchards can spread out some of the risk.
So also with hedge pruning, what you see is that when you bring the size of that canopy down, you're bringing the top of that tree back down to size that the root system of that tree can still better support, and you got better anchorage. And that's one thing that we also see for young trees. I think one of the issues that has led to the degree of hurricane damage we've had, certainly for that younger age range, is it's natural for pecan growers to want to push these young trees when they plant them, to get them as big as possible, as fast as they can, so they can get them into production as fast as they can. Long term, that's probably not a good idea. What we are seeing is that these trees that are pushed so fast, the tops of those trees generally outgrow the root systems, and they're going to be more vulnerable to being blown over. So we've changed our recommendations there. As far as management of these young trees, we recommend kind of slowing down on the fertilizer, lighten up on the fertilizer somewhat, cut back on the water that we're applying to these young trees to kind of slow that growth down so that the root system can kind of keep pace with the top of that tree's growth. Generally after a hurricane, there are a lot of programs available to growers to help with some of these issues. USDA often comes out with several programs to help growers cost share some of the cleanup process, and often some of the aftermath as far as replanting and that kind of thing. So there is always kind of a lag period that growers have to get through, but there is some cost share there.
And you just need to think about all those things. It's not going to be a yard trimming. I mean, it's going to be a massive effort to clean up a pecan orchard, and you need to try to think of all those things, and don't underestimate what it's going to take to clean up a 45-year-old pecan tree. Not one of them, but thousands and thousands of them.
We know hurricanes aren't going away, so our research is ongoing and we're making progress every day. Growers and researchers are working together to make the future of pecans in Georgia resilient and sustainable.